YouTube? Welcome back to UniX TCG, and it has been a little bit. We have been traveling a lot for Battle Spirits, had a kind of paid gig to go promote the game, demoing another states, and then we had the Las Vegas launch event, followed by my last leg of demos, so I have been pretty much not here, except for that One Piece regional for March, and I am tired, but you know, the show goes on, the grind goes on. We are definitely going to be pushing for newer heights, and so here we are with a new discussion video. Right before I jump into it, I just want to say that if you guys love the content and want to continue supporting it, all you gotta do is go down, click that like button, make sure you comment, you know, hit the subscribe button, and the notification button so you never miss a beat. The channel is growing and it's gonna keep growing, and that is just strictly from the help of all of you guys and then the content that I relentlessly try to put out. So, the topic of this video, right, is it's kind of weird. Lots of people constantly have this option or this dilemma when they're making deck choices, what to play. And it really comes down to one major choice, and that is consistency versus power. And you would think that consistency is power, but you would be mistaken in some cases with the game known as One Piece card game. So there are certain decks that are consistent above everything else. When I mean consistent, I mean every single game they do the same thing. But so far, we have rarely had a deck that is both consistent and explosive. Consistently explosive. We normally have decks that are consistent and they do the same thing every game, but their highs and their lows are less, you know, than another deck that is more explosive but has a higher ceiling but a chance to brick. And what I mean by this is, like, let's take some of the best decks of last format, right? Kid, Kaido. Kid is an amazing deck. You've got plenty of search. You've got a leader that can turn very aggressive. You can have a leader that can clear multiple things off the board. You've got tools like Basil. You've got many blockers. You had an oppressive floodgate in the form of 8-drop Kid. However, this deck pretty much, while it does the same things every game, and sometimes they can feel oppressive, there are many games where you can just not see any of your searchers and you're just trying to go off the top of the deck. There are games where, and when you don't have the searchers adding all these cards to your hand, your deck can get pretty outpaced by some of the more aggressive things. You have other games where you just get all your stuff, right? But your opponent just maybe has the eyes on you. Like, look at Kaido. Kaido, also, very good deck. When Kaido low rolls, you don't see your field card, you're only seeing Dawn minus effects, you never get to catch up, and your opponent has a pretty even time beating you too low to use your 10-drop board wipe. However, when Kaido goes off, you see your island. You see your Thunder Baguas, you see your Blast Breath, you are continuously getting your defensive cards, you're playing your queens, you're going through your deck, you're playing your destruction, your opponent plays a threat, and before they can even use the threat, you destroy it and establish your own threat. This is what I mean by high rolling. This deck is way more explosive with way more power, like a higher ceiling. However, sometimes you don't hit that ceiling. Sometimes you don't hit half of that ceiling. And so before, last set, you had the Kings of High Roll. And these are the decks that literally, when they went off, they felt tier 0. And I'm gonna put Zoro in here lightly because it was hard to go for Zoro to go off after, you know, after Kid kind of got established. But when these 3 decks in set 1 went hard, they felt untouchable. Kaido's just blowing up all your things. Law is just going off and getting so many cards in hand, you just didn't even know they were playing the same game. Zoro is able to put up an amount of aggression that was very low to the ground and felt like you were just fighting for your life to just play. But each of them also had their faults. For instance, Zoro, you could just not get your aggro off, or your opponent can open super defensive and you just hit a wall that you can't get over. You have Law, and Law, on the other hand, could either go to realms of ridiculous plussing, or you could be sitting there with barely any board because your opponent is tapping them and destroying them. Your opponent established a Robin and they saw their jet pistols. Your opponent was able to, there's a lot of things that can happen to your board, and once this card has the disrupted board, you're not really functioning. You're a 4-life vanilla leader, and that's an atrocious place to be in that format. You have Kaido. We just talked about that. Kaido can literally be very, very fragile, or Kaido can seem like the most broken deck in the game. That format, it really just depends on how did you open. But then, what you saw topping more often were the kings of consistency. Kid, with its double set of searchers and a split deck list between Supernovas and Land of Wano, was able to get you where you needed to go often in the exact same way. Luffy was playing 4 of every good card in its deck, and you were just able to go off the ways you needed to go off. You have your Ben Beckmans, you have your Luffys, you have your Zoros. You were able to find your cards because between Nami's and, if you wanted to, 2 years at Sabaody, you really were able to search all of your gas, and you were running the correct numbers to always see them. You got to a point where you were playing 3 or 4 Shanks. Like, you were playing consistent numbers and getting consistent results. Doflamingo. Again, this is another deck that you have so many cards that search your top 5 or look at your top 5 to rearrange them, and then a leader that pulls off the top of your deck. You were able to see the same amount of like gas pretty much every single game. Now the issue here though between these 3 is that, you know, this one just had the most, weird mirror. This one has the most consistency. This one had the second most consistency, but maybe a little more power. And this one had consistency, but not as much power as the other 2. So sometimes this would just get bullied out of the game just by existing, whereas sometimes it would get very oppressive when you were able to stack things like Mihawks and 9-drops or 9-drop Mihawks and Dofis and all these other things. So, where does this leave us with this format? And that's what I want to get to, because things have shifted. Things have definitely shifted. So we've seemed to hit like this weird point with One Piece where I think it has flipped, because before, consistency was essentially king. You had the kids dominating the top brackets, followed by Luffy, and then there's some Kaido snuck in, and every now and then a Law would sneak in. But when you get to this format, right, the most consistent decks, in my opinion, have still stayed, for the most part, the same. At the top of the list, you've got Kinemon. Between his ability to use the Land of Wano package very, very much so more effectively, you're playing Okikus for 2, you're playing 4-drop Yamatos for 3, Odins for 7 if your board is, a little low. This guy is able to have the better searches off of Momo while still being able to use the searches off of Bonnie. This guy is playing things in an early game standpoint at a faster tempo, but then if your board gets clapped, he's able to come over and play from behind very well because of his ability. Along those same lines, don't let that count out Kid. He, spoiler alert, Kid may be doing some funny things in the manga, but Kid is a force here. So it's just kind of like, you're not able to play Okikus early. You're not able to discount your big drop, but Kid is still able to use green just as effectively, and he has a game-winning effect on his leader by himself. So Kid, still very consistent. Next, we have Ivankov. Ivankov does almost the same things every single game because it sees the most cards out of every single deck. There's a field card that helps you add +1 to your filter. You're going to be going down to 0 cards in hand and drawing. Your boss card will draw up to 3 depending on your hand size. This guy is wholeheartedly able to do an amazing amount of filter, and so pretty much every single game you're going to see it operate the same way. Then you got Doflamingo, who got a new card, got 2-3 new cards, but essentially does the same thing as well. Every single game, very consistent decks. But for some reason, and I'm not going to say some, I'm saying some reason for now, these decks are not the decks. Kinemon definitely is. Kinemon definitely is one of the strongest decks in the game, but you would think that with all these being consistency monsters, they would all be flooding the top cuts, when in reality, it's Kinemon flooding the top cuts, and then some of the decks you're going to see. Now, when it comes to Red, okay, Red is in a very, very weird space right now, because Red, in no way, shape, or form, is more consistent than Kid, Kinemon, Doflamingo, or Ivankov. But what Red does have is a certain level of consistency combined with a much higher ceiling of raw power. With your red cards, you're splashing some of the same cards per deck. you're usually able, you're with all three of these decks, most likely you're running a Straw Hat engine, allowing you to play rushers like Luffy, rushers like Zoro, cards like Robin to get rid of your opponent's blockers and low to the ground threats. You're also running things like Jet Pistol in 2 of these decks, sometimes even 3. You're able to use Seaquake in Whitebeard. You're getting rid of things through effects. They all gain Vista. So Vista is now going to be able to, on play, blow up things, not have to survive a turn like Robin to get its work in. And then most importantly, you've hit Whitebeard as a top end threat. You are now going to be able to just play Whitebeard and make sure that your opponent will not be able to attack you late game, or at least not do it as easily. And this is kind of the thing that's really, really, really destructive. This deck is 100% able, well, these decks are 100% able to have a very aggressive early game, a very aggressive mid game, and then close it out with a boss monster that makes you harder to kill, who then next turn becomes the ultimate amounts of aggression. And when that happens, I just don't know what to say. This is just a very, very, very strong set of cards. And so red is eating right now. Red is not the most consistent. Sometimes you will have low games, sometimes you will have high games, but you know what? You will never have, like, a lack of aggression. And it's just a matter of where you land on that scale. And the thing is, in a 9-round best of 1 event, this is what's actually getting into people. Like, look, you can say consistency kills, and it did last set. But this set, people are being rewarded for playing a less consistent yet more explosive deck. Because at the end of the day, going into 9 rounds, you only have to hit 7 or 8 of those rounds as a high roll. And I say only, but yeah, if it's 40-60, you only have to hit that 40% high roll 8 times, and you're in top cut. You're prizing. You only have to hit that high roll so many times, and then bam, you're where you need to be. You have some decks that are kind of in the middle for me. Law still has one of the highest ceilings in the game, but Law can be affected in a lot of ways that you probably wouldn't like. You also have Smoker, which, again, Smoker doesn't have a searcher. You have to run everything on 4 ofs. It's at a weird curve, but Smoker can also do work. So I wouldn't say Smoker's consistent, but Smoker can be very, very powerful. But it's just not, its power isn't as aggressive as the red deck, so I don't put him in the same thing. Yes, he can be powerful. Yes, he's less on consistency. He's lower in consistency, but he's not in the same league as those 3 red decks. Or even Law. Law is in a league higher than that. Kaido, still the same thing. The only thing is, though, Kaido gained defense in the form of Hell's Judgment. That keeps Kaido alive at a much better rate. However, most of his cards are still very, very high statted, very, very high costed, and sometimes red just gets under that curve with aggression, like extreme aggression. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. Like, you're really looking at a format where you are being more so rewarded for picking the explosive deck that can go off maybe 50-60% of the time, and just hoping that it gets you there throughout all of those games. And I'm not even mad at it. It is just what happens. Like, sometimes it's just what's supposed to be, and you know, games have their ebb and flow. But I want to know what you guys think. Okay, do you guys prioritize consistency or less consistency with more power? Because it does seem like this current format is showing you that no matter what, no matter how often your game does the same thing every single match, sometimes you will just roll high, but your high is lower than the high of this deck. And when you get met with these, you can get steamrolled. So I want to know what you guys think. Little discussion video, little food for thought. And I will see you guys tomorrow. I think we will start doing our All You Need to Know series and really see where it goes from there. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks. Later. Oh, and by the way, if you guys want to know the best vendor that I know of that you can buy from, let me just hit you right here with the ad. Be sure to go in the description to look at their event that's happening in Missouri later in this month. It's going to be a crazy event with first place winning multiple boxes of Paramount War, along with a super pre-release Luffy Winter Edition, with second place winning a Manga Ace on top of multiple boxes, and people winning multiple boxes from then down. So yeah, let me know what you guys are looking forward to, and I will be happy to just answer any questions I can in the comments. But yeah, I want to know what you guys' thoughts are. Thanks. See you later. Peace. So let's talk about Mystic TCG, your one-stop shop for all your TCG needs. On the site, you can buy or pre-order plenty of sealed product for plenty of games. Just make sure though, if you're pre-ordering, to give it 3 to 4 months in advance to start looking, because sometimes the product is indeed hot, supply and demand, you know? And then if you want to buy singles, go on tcgplayer.com. There's going to be a link in the description where you can buy for the best value. And if you want to sell cards or collections, you can message them on their Facebook site so you can get the best bang for your buck on any type of way you want to buy or sell cards. And then while you're at it, you can use the code UNIXTCG at checkout to get even more of a discount. So hey, what are you waiting for? Check out Mystic TCG today.